Okay, so we've made some good progress with the restoration so far. We've recored with new wood the structural headband and tailband and reinforced it with twine. We've also reinforced the central ribs with these leather strips and 3 lengths of twine in each case. And we've left lots of twine sort of hanging out to the sides in both cases because this is how we're ultimately going to attach the boards. But before we do that, we've just a couple of steps to do just to prepare the spine here, just to make sure that everything here is sort of stable and set. In a moment we're going to use a piece of fabric to act as a medium to really just glue everything down and set it. A few purposes for that. The first thing is it's actually a really important step for the book. If you look here you can see pieces of papier-mâché basically, or paper that was used by the original book binders to do exactly the same thing. This would have been soaked in an animal or maybe a grain-based glue and then paper pushed down on top, and what that does is it just helps stabilize the ends of the gatherings together and just keeps the book really as one unit. As you can see, a lot of it's really worn away and there are holes, and that's because the glue was very tasty to the bookworms that were just sort of busy gnawing their way through all of this. But in simple terms, we need to do the same thing, but I'm going to use a piece of glue-soaked fabric to do that. Before we take that step, I was just checking the state of these end papers here. Now the one on this side is fine, it's in good shape. But on this side you can see it's actually torn away. So before I put fabric there, I'm going to just use a spare piece of, well, it's 150 years younger, but it's kind of still old. Spare paper that I've got here that I'm just going to glue and then slide into place in such a way that it'll just hold that sheet like so. It'll just hold that sheet in place. So just with a little bit of glue, I'm going to stabilize this page, and then we'll start with the fabric. Okay, so we have our little repair done here. This is a bit of fabric I'm going to use. It's just plain cotton. Now, I will freely say this is currently way too big for what we need to do. But what I'm going to do first is I'm going to poke holes down each side and pass these cords through so the fabric is therefore in place. Then what I'm going to do is trim it top and bottom because we don't want the fabric going over the headband and tailband, and we'll just be left with the fabric hanging over each side, and that'll then be ready for gluing into place. Okay, so I've gone and done the corners first, the headband and tailband in other words. I've done that deliberately because it just stops the fabric from sort of moving around in an uncontrolled way while I do the rest. The other thing to note is I could have put a lot of tension in this, but there really isn't much purpose in that. What I'm keen to do is to get the glue to soak into this, soak all the way through. I'm going to use quite a lot of glue for this step. And I want this to sort of bed down and really just help adhere everything together, because that's, I think, important for the structure of the book. So that's how it's going to look. So the next step is obviously to bring the middle cords through as well. Okay, so all of the cords are through now. So the next thing I'm going to do is trim the corners, and I think the best way to tackle this is going to be to cut across at 45 degrees like this. And the purpose here is I want to fold the fabric when I glue it. I want to fold the fabric back like this at the head and tail like this, and then glue this surface down and do the same at the other four corners. But I want to leave this flap here because this section is actually going to be glued onto the hardcover boards when we attach them. I will emphasize though that the actual job of holding the weight of the boards and keeping them attached to the book, although the fabric will be glued, the actual work's going to be done by these cords. Okay, so this fabric is now ready to receive the glue. What I've done is I've just marked the edges of the spine with a little bit of pen. I want the glue to stay in those boundaries. I don't want to glue this edge because I don't want any glue getting on that paper, and this is going to be free to be attached to the boards shortly. But I'm going to be using quite a copious amount of glue here in this center section. So this is always a bit of a nerve-wracking moment when you're about to apply something of this scale to such an old book. Fingers crossed, here we go. As I'm applying the glue, you can see it's soaking through and the fabric and actually adhering the fabric to the spine underneath. And so, you know, there comes a point where the fabric actually wants to stick to the spine and is less keen to stick to my hand, which is good. I'm also not going to be shy about putting quite a bit of glue up against the headband and tailband. When this sets, it'll just hold those in place a little bit, which will be quite good. There we go. Okay, this is about it. So I'm now going to leave this to dry. Make sure it's stuck down everywhere it should be. And it'll set in place and just act as a really good reinforcement to all the work that we've done to restore the book. So we'll give that overnight to set, and then we'll move to thinking about creating some boards that we can attach.